Welcome back, everybody. Right, it's going to be a really intense few months, and we've actually got quite a lot of World of Warcraft releases happening within, the next few weeks and months. So, I want to dive right into it, and today we're going to discuss what the future holds for World of Warcraft. Okay, the direct future. Patch 10.2 is actually on the PTR right now. No, we can't access it yet because it's encrypted. And while 10.17 is but a few days away in September 5th, something else has snuck onto its build on the PTR, and that is pre-order bonuses for WoW's 10th expansion. 11.0 will be revealed this BlizzCon, and it will launch in 2024. That's actually World of Warcraft's 10th expansion, launching on the game's 20th anniversary, which also happens to be the franchise's 30th anniversary and my 30th birthday, meaning that, oh my god, I'm the same age as Warcraft. That's a bit spooky. But all that development is taking place after they've bulked out the size of the WoW development team to 700 plus people. And hopefully they've also installed today's sponsor. If you'd like to save money, access more content for your money, and be more secure, then nordvpn.com/Bellular Gaming does just that. The special deal at my link means that every 2-year plan comes with a 4-month free bonus, and they've got a 30-day money-back guarantee. Now, Nord lets you browse the web as if you are anywhere in the world, and that lets you do a lot, right? This time around, I'm going to focus on traveling. You see, ticket prices for things like cars are all optimized based on regional demand and a bunch of other factors like airline, home country, national wealth, things like that. So, if you clear your cookies and then use NordVPN to shop around as if you're in different countries, you can actually benefit from those regional price differences. And you can do this for many things in the internet. I'm going to Germany and the USA relatively soon, so knowing that with Nord I can get the best deals and also access content as if I was back home, that is just perfect. And of course, all while they keep you private, stop your ISP from snooping, have fantastic threat protection services, and even new features like MeshNet, all in the app and browser extension that are super easy to use. And again, you can get my exclusive offer of 4 free months with a 2-year plan at nordvpn.com/Bellular Gaming with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Okay, I'm going to knock out the pre-order bonuses first. Right, Dragonflight comes with 500 Traders Tender. You just didn't notice it because, well, you already had it. 11.0, then, if you pre-order it, will have 500 Traders Tender. But what's new is the Heroic and Epic editions will come with a bonus 250 and 500 respectively. So, basically, 1,000 Tender if you buy the maximum version of the expansion. It'll probably also have a character boost, a transmog of some description, perhaps a mount, custom Hearthstone effect, or an enchant, that kind of thing. Now, the timing of this also lines up quite smartly with the store as well. We've got the new sets of 3 bits of class-themed armor along with class-themed weapons, which are dropping on the store, the Traders Tender store that is, from September through to the end of this year. Now, they're actually a total of 12,350 Tender, right, spread out across those months. It'll be pretty hefty if you want to get something for every character that you play. And also, I imagine the virtual ticket for BlizzCon will also come with some tendies. Though you should note that this year, it seems that the virtual ticket is actually no longer required to watch BlizzCon. It seems all of BlizzCon is streamable for free, and the virtual ticket is just access to likely convention merch and digital bonuses. Right, let's talk about patch 10.2 then. It's actually on the public test realm right now, so testing will be super soon. The problem is, you can't exactly just test a patch without announcing it first. Now, take a look at 10.17 Fury Incarnate. It's going to lead into 10.2 narratively. So they can't reveal 10.2 until we know vaguely what happens in 10.1.7, and 10.1.7 is rather odd. Here's the promotional graphic. You can see Farak. Where is Farak in the PTR for that patch? The answer is nowhere. He's not in Dream Surges. We don't have any story that we can play. We don't know why the Dream Surges are happening. And then it gets more curious. Blizzard were rather sneaky, posting a high-res version of their content roadmap, one that featured Farak and Viranoth facing each other down. You know, posed in a way that Warcraft is obviously no stranger to. And while more story is highlighting tier, right, and only tier, it's also extremely clear that a lot more will go down involving Farak and Viranoth. So basically, we need to see what that story is before 10.2 gets revealed. This will all be super soon. Quick little stop in conspiracy land, though. This is a tweet from Groxy that actually clicked a lot in my brain. Now, did you not think it was a bit strange that Alex Straza just sort of casually name-dropped Emir Drasil. That's the name of the new world tree that is growing in the Onaran Plains. She kind of name-dropped that as if we already knew that's what it was called in the 10.1.7 cutscene. It was a super bizarre way for Blizzard to tell us what the name of that is, right? Now, he kind of speculates that they maybe changed the order of release for some content. One theory is that perhaps the Emerald Dream content was supposed to come earlier than it actually did. I don't know, maybe Blizzard saw the beta feedback, right, of, the seeming death of Malfurion really not going down well with players. Maybe they chopped and changed things around. I don't really know, but point is, 10.2 reveal and PTR, absolutely ASAP. So let's talk about the release date then. 10.2 will either be before or after BlizzCon, but maybe it could be both before and after BlizzCon. Yeah, so BlizzCon runs from Friday the 3rd to Saturday the 4th of November. Now you'd imagine they wouldn't want to release a patch like too close to that, but maybe that's what they're going to be forced to do, right? Just by the calendar. Indeed, maybe they wanted to reveal more things like very recently, but of course, Classic Hardcore was taking up all of the public relations space. It took patch 10.1 roughly 7.5 weeks to go from its first PTR build to the launch of that patch, just under 2 months. So let's assume the PTR for 10.2 releases, say, next week or even this week, right? 1 week ahead of the release of patch 10.1.7, maybe similar to how 10.1 started PTR testing, just a bit before 10.07 was released. Now, assuming that the 10.2 PTR lasts for about as long as the 10.1 PTR did, then we're actually looking at a release date of October 24th and 25th. For patch 10.2. That is just about 1.5 weeks ahead of BlizzCon. Now, if the raid was to release a week after the patch dropped, as is usual, then it would come out a mere few days before BlizzCon, which would not really be ideal. Now, a few people in the know have actually said, and I've heard it in the grapevine on the rumor mill, that 10.2 will drop before BlizzCon, but that the season will start after BlizzCon. That does make a degree of sense, but it would, I think, mean the patch going out the week of BlizzCon and the season starting the week after. For hardcore players, that would be a bit tricky, but the only other way around that would be the patch dropping and then there being a 2-week wait until the new raid comes out. And I really do think that could feel quite skimpy in terms of content. People may not enjoy a patch day experience where, you finish everything in one day and then you've got to wait 2 weeks for the next thing. Anyhow, that is what I expect. And then, of course, we've got the big question of what is truly next. What's beyond 10.2? Well, BlizzCon will reveal our next expansion, but Dragonflight will not be over. The roadmap does end with patch 10.2 and Season 3, but remember that roadmap was framed as World of Warcraft's 2023 roadmap, not the Dragonflight expansion roadmap. That means the 2024 is going to have our next expansion pack plus Dragonflight patches. And for that, I think we have 2 options. Option A roughly goes like this. Patch 10.2.5 dropping in maybe January, 10.2.7 dropping in March, 10.3 dropping late May, and then 11.0 releasing late November. That actually gets us 6-month-long seasons, a full 4th tier of content, and a full 4th season. That would be absolutely fantastic, and it would also give Dragonflight a lot more narrative room, because if 10.2 is the last raid tier and major patch, it does seem like it would be quite hard to wrap the story up in a neat bow. And if that seems like a truly absurd amount of content, remember, the team's over 700 people. Also, I don't know if it was Ian Hazacostas or John Haidt who said this, but basically, rather than throwing more bodies at one problem, this larger team is more allowing them to parallelize their work, right? So that basically means more teams working on more patches at the same time. So that doesn't seem unreasonable. Now, I do have to deal with the less good option. But the good news here is that the less good option, the bad option, is actually not that bad. We would see 10.2.5, maybe January, February, 10.2.7, March or April, and then likely that timing would mean that patch 10.2.7 would be bringing in Season 4. However, instead of being a full content patch with a full raid tier, we would instead be getting a greatest hits season. That would basically be just like Season 4 of Shadowlands. Unlike Shadowlands, however, 10.2.5 and 10.2.7 can actually continue that main storyline and lead us directly into our next expansion. And that is actually something that Final Fantasy XIV does extremely successfully. This whole idea of a humongous content drought, it is mostly a World of Warcraft expansion cycle thing. Over in FF14, while things do get a little bit more sparse towards the end, they have done a remarkably good job of just having a smooth content cadence and a very, very successful lead into its successive expansions. So that means that even the worst case scenario content-wise is not that bad at all. It's actually far, far better than what the average for World of Warcraft has been. I mean, for basically ever. And that's really good. Next then, Chris Metzen. Alright, let's talk about Chris Metzen. He has led much of Blizzard's intellectual property creatively. We know that he's back, but some new information has came to light. But first, I need to just ensure that you understand about WoW's creative direction, and this is especially if you're a newer player to the franchise. Maybe if you've joined in like Legion or later and you don't have that experience of the earlier days of World of Warcraft. So Chris Metzen is a guy who worked on pretty much all of the core franchises of Blizzard in a major creative direction way. He was less focused on the small details and the minutiae of the content, and he was a lot more focused on the big picture, right? Now his last project in the Warcraft IP, from what we understand, is the Battle for Azeroth cinematic. Now if you look at that BFA cinematic, I think the essence of what it is about is faction pride. It went hard into the parts of each faction that players identify with. It was absolutely screaming Warcraft, just as much as the Legion or Warlords of Draenor trailers were. Now I want you to compare those to Dragonflight's trailer. Let's be real, the Dragonflight trailer was nice, but it was also kind of lame. And it wasn't really backed up with, even say the Mists of Pandaria, monologue. It wasn't even backed up by something as, well, cool as that. Now, the Razageth shots were pretty cool, but big picture, it did not have that cool factor. Yes, people liked our stony friend, who climbed up the big thing and fell down and has since not really done that much in the expansion. Overall, it was lacking a lot of cool factor. Compare it to the Warlords of Draenor cinematic, and I think I can rest my case. And it has felt like World of Warcraft is trying to position itself more as a wholesome game, if you're aware of that genre of video games. And look, wholesome games, all well and good. If that's what you want to make, fair play to you. But I don't think that is the core of Warcraft. Think about what made Warcraft great. Look at the narrative of Warcraft 3, those cinematics, Thrall and Grom. Like, yeah, sure, some of Chromie hugging Nosdormu's leg, that's all fine and wholesome and whatever, but Warcraft, the essence of Warcraft is that Thrall and Grom cinematic, as an example. That was the real shit. It was big, it was bombastic, it had so much heart, and it was always working those big archetypical themes, super successful. And other than that, Battle for Azeroth cinematic, I think if you want a perfect example of that, the death of Varian Wrynn. Very well executed. And as we know, Chris Metzen, who led a lot of that stuff, is back. Now, many thought that he was just kind of back in paper, right? More of an optics thing. But it actually turns out that's kind of false. And here are some quotes from Taliesin. The impression that I get is that Chris Metzen is actually a far bigger part of the WoW team than any of us originally thought. That actually, far from being a symbolic retired thoroughbred that gets wheeled out on special occasions, he is a fundamental part of the current leadership of World of Warcraft. Another quote from Tali. I have heard that Chris Metzen, Ian Hazzikostas, and Steve Denuser spend huge amounts of time in the room with each other throwing ideas around. And the final quote from Taliesin. I have heard that Chris Metzen gives regular and incredibly detailed updates to the rest of Team 2 on their plans that they are working on. Now, I cannot personally verify that. I don't think I've spoken to the same people that Taliesin has. But I do have, my own grapevine. And on that grapevine, I have heard tales of some people in the Warcraft team actually, not being that interested in the original vision of classic Warcraft. And I've heard tales of them being, this year, rather frustrated by elements of Metzen's direction. Now, I still do take that with a massive grain of salt, because look, even if 30 people are frustrated, That seems like a lot of people, you know, even if it's dozens of people. But 30 people is still less than 5% of the World of Warcraft development team. So at any time that there's talk to the press or anything like that, you've got to remember, like, this is a tiny number of people for a very large team. Is that representative? Anyhow, that I have heard things that in a timeline where Metzen is a lot more involved makes sense. That does lead me to believe that, yeah, whatever's on Taliesin's grapevine is probably just about right. So, I actually do think that's the case, and if what is being said there is true, I think that is amazing. And here is why. Battle for Azeroth turned from the immaculate direction of that cinematic to a total mess. Even take Saurfang's story. You know, Old Soldier, the big cinematic, that was awesome. It was done well in advance, of course. Cinematics like that take an inordinate amount of time to put together. The in-game content, though. Saurfang gets depressed and opts to unalive himself via the Alliance. Of course, Anduin doesn't let him do that, takes him prisoner, they end up becoming mates, and the rest of BFA happens. But it was quite odd how the Old Soldier cinematic was kind of like, well, some of that character development immediately Saurfang went back on. It does show that perhaps there was more of a true, like, faction pride thing going on initially, but obviously instead we saw BFA quickly turn away from that. There was the deconstruction of Sylvanas as a character, and just so much that happened with the in-game content that was not really in line with the Battle for Azeroth expansion's core cell, in the same way that perhaps the content of Warlords of Draenor or the content of Legion was very much in line with the core cell of those expansions. BFA in many points started to feel like the opposite of Warcraft, and then, of course, Shadowlands continued that in a deep way. Now here's what's happened. Dragonflight has fixed so many problems, but it actually has still not recaptured that core of Warcraft. Dragonflight is too soft. It pulls its punches. It lacks spectacle and cool factor. Basically, World of Warcraft can't get it up anymore. World of Warcraft is shooting blanks, etc, etc, etc. Yeah, sorry for the crudeness. Now as an example, here's a timeline where Dragonflight is a lot more cool. Azeroth's heart is weakened after Zoval's attack. Magni and Khadgar confer with the dragons, who of course are these legendary protectors of the world, who last were of course helping us in BFA defend the planet. Raszageth by this stage though has escaped, much as she did in the expansion that we got. And remember, Raszageth and her people, they hate the Titans, but they don't hate Azeroth. Azeroth is still part of their world. So rather than a bunch of feel-good, nonsense, think back to what made the Cataclysm trailer pop. Sink ships. Send the elements of Azeroth into a cinematic rage. Valdrakken has fallen. The Onaran Plains are in terrible strife. The dragons have been caught totally by surprise. We players then campaign with them and the local resistance across patch 10.0, and by the end of that story, the Dragon Isles are ours. But with the Incarnates free, our work is not done. And basically what I'm getting at here is a level of narrative impetus and cool factor and set pieces. Valdrakken should be on fire. Valdrakken should be basically half destroyed, and that is something that we should reclaim. The war in Warcraft. Instead, we ran around empowering Oathstones. What is an Oathstone? Why, instead of doing real shit, are we on another one of the modern WoW team's classic MacGuffin hunts? It's at the stage where if the Sith dagger from that utter embarrassment of a final Star Wars movie just appeared in the next expansion for us to hunt, I wouldn't be surprised. So here's my TLDR. World of Warcraft has solved so many gameplay issues. It's got way better execution. They're way better at taking on feedback. But it's a really good execution of ideas that are mid at best. They can get the details right, but those details don't matter if you're barking up the wrong tree. That's where I think that Metzen is important. I think his creative leadership is going to be more on the big picture stuff, not the details. And that's fine, because I trust the WoW team to get those details right, just like, say, the Blue Dragon questline. But evidently, there is not that vision from the top of something that will fundamentally delight and surprise players and get them in their soul excited in the way that Warcraft used to. I've long said that all they need is an expansion concept that will get people hyped. They need to have a moment that is frankly as cool as Grom raising his big axe and talking about freedom. They need something of that level of cool, and if you mix that with Dragonflight's vastly superior design and content cadence, then I'm feeling damn good about the future. Only time will tell. One thing is certain though, for me, that Metzen's going to be here at this BlizzCon announcing something fairly big, and that Taliesin is saying that via his grapevine Metzen's far more involved than we thought. That is kind of music to my ears. Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching. Check out, of course, NordVPN for all that VPN goodness, link in the description, and I'll see you in some videos, maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after. Have a great day. I'll see you there.
Mm-hmm.